Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jason Khalipa alongside Gabe Yanez, and I have a raspy ass voice because I've been yelling and I just have not been able to get this thing back for the last couple weeks. So I apologize, but it is what it is. This is where we're at, and we're going to have a kick-ass episode today. Gabe, good morning.
Good morning, man. Dude, what is going on with your voice? Did you go to urgent care?
I did go to urgent care. So it's been
What'd they say?
Basically saying you stop hill sprinting, stop commentating, and just,
chill. So stop burning the candle on both ends and you'll probably get better.
So this started after hill sprints 2 weeks ago with the men's club. And then, dude, I just haven't been able to get back. So I did go to urgent care. They tested me for strep. They said it wasn't strep. And they gave me some I don't know, Sudafed that's like high end they think it maybe I have some congestion, and they gave me a nasal spray. But then they also referred me off to a ear, nose, and throat specialist to see if I was like some like lesions in my throat from for getting too fired up too often. So I'm drinking some tea. You know what's funny about right now, dude? Is like
that's got to be a clip for social.
Dude, you know what's funny?
Just lesions in my throat for getting fired up too often.
Dude, you know what's funny is that if you're watching this on camera on YouTube, I got my tea here, I got my coffee here, because I cannot go a day without some solid coffee. But I feel like I don't want to just have coffee, so I'm rocking both.
Oh man, that's good, dude. So you had another men's club meetup this morning. It's been fun so we were just talking about it before you hit record, and it's been really fun. I haven't been to any in person, but it's just been fun to see the video, see the turnout, hear some of the really cool stories of, these dads that are coming to throw down with you. And then as a lately example, Sean Woodland bringing it up in the Rogue Invitational, because he's been to a few, correct?
Yeah, man. I mean, so yes, this morning we had like the 5 a.m. crew here. There was 14 men in the garage just throwing down. It was majority from the kids' school, and then we also had some from Campbell PD and some other guys I know. And yeah, dude, just got after it. We did, with that group, it's tough because I want to just basically create an environment where there's like a strong energy where like you're just fueling off each other. I think we do a good job of that. But I also want to like introduce them to some new movements. It just gets tough when you have that many people in a small garage with limited equipment. So in the future, we actually got approval from my kids' school to use their gymnasium, like where they play volleyball, basketball, whatever, to do workouts. So the next one we do is going to be there, and Go Ruck and Rogue have been fortunate enough to support us. So we're going to have sandbags and bikes and just really build something there where, just like 5 a.m. before morning assembly, we just get after it. So that's the goal for now. But as you said, man, people come in. Sean Woodland gave us a great shout out on the Rogue Invitational. That was really meaningful to me because it obviously touched him enough that he brought it up on a broadcast, which is cool. And these men, these dads, they leave, and dude, we talk about this idea of providing. You were hinting at this earlier. You didn't hint at it. You said it earlier that men inherently want to provide. And I think when I think about provide, I was talking about like experiences and stuff like that. And I think I've been a little bit soft when I talk about like providing in terms of like financially. I do have a goal to provide for my family financially. And where does fitness play into that? Fitness plays into that because, dude, I get after it at 5 a.m. I show up better the rest of the day. I show up better at work. I work harder at work. I look the part at work. And all of those things are going to help elevate me. So hopefully I can provide more for my family, provide more experiences, provide more financially, provide all those things. And so these guys left, and you could tell their energy was different. I saw 5 of them at morning assembly. Pretty cool, actually. At the kids' school, they do, Pledge of Allegiance, all that kind of stuff. And dude, you could just tell, like, there's just a difference in their energy. They walk different. They talk different. It was great.
Yeah, man, you get out there with your chin held up higher, you just feel better. And what I was saying before, man, is that I'm reading a really interesting book of Boys and Men. I think it's either, I'm pretty sure it's a Boys and Men. I can't think of the author right now, but it's a really good book on just this idea that like men and boys in general have had a rough go over the past few decades. And the beginning of the book really tries to get in front of this idea that like, if you talk about the problems that men are going through, you're not in any way diminishing the challenges that women go through. And unfortunately, it's become like a zero-sum game, right? Like if you bring up the fact that like, men are struggling with mental health and, it's getting harder for, men to get jobs, and they're doing a lot worse in school, in elementary school, in high school, like number of bachelor's degrees, all these things, like levels of that for young men are going down, and it's actually going up for women. And for some reason, if you bring that up, it's saying as if there aren't also obstacles that women are going through. They are. They're very different, and we should be working on those as well. But it doesn't mean that you have to like completely ignore the fact that there are these very, very real, things that are making it tough to be a guy in today's world. And I love the fact that like as a brand, we're talking about that. I love the fact that you're doing the Train Hard Men clubs and like having a space for men to go out there and get after and start their day on a high note. But yeah, man, the part of the book that I'm on now is how like throughout history, like men have traditionally been the providers, right? They've been the breadwinners. And that's not to say that women can't in some families, by all means. Like if that's the structure that works, like that's awesome. And it's awesome that some women now can go out there and have the ability to do that. But we can't ignore the fact that traditionally that's been like a big part of like what gives us as men purpose, right? Like there's a sense of pride in being the ones that can put food on the table and provide experiences and all of these things. It gives you a sense of like, that's what I'm going out and accomplishing. And I think that fitness plays a huge role in helping us be successful in not just that facet, but every facet of life, right? Like we talk about this all the time. You just mentioned it now. Like if I get a good workout in the morning, like I trained right before we record this podcast. I had a really good session today. I am fired up. I feel good. I go, I change. I like look in the mirror. I'm like, fuck yeah. Like I feel good. I'm doing work. I'm feeling healthy. Like I'm ready to like knock the day out of the park. And that's not to say that if I have a bad workout, like I don't feel good. If anything, if I go out there and put a solid effort in to like do something that moves my health in the right direction, I've just like started the day on such a good note that it gives me like the confidence to come in here and I feel like really execute. And I think that that's an impact that it can have on all men. Like the example I was bringing up is it could be the difference in having that like slight bit of confidence to potentially bring up that idea that maybe you wouldn't have brought up at work that then ends up like, working out really well, gets brought up in a performance review in the future, and is the reason that like your career moves forward. And I know that that's like a very specific example, but it's very, very likely. Like fitness is a catalyst for confidence, and confidence is a catalyst for just going out there and executing on a level that you wouldn't have had you not had that confidence. And I think that that's why working out and what we're trying to do is so important.
Dude, 100%, 100%. And that's why, the brand and Train Hard, where we're going, is to help people who want to be able to protect themselves and family, provide, and using fitness. Like that's what we know. Like we're not going to be talking about other stuff. We train other stuff, but it's really about fitness as a catalyst for that. And it doesn't take much, man. Like it's so funny. I had Drew over this morning, and the guy only works out with me. That's it. So he works out once a week when he's over here. And it's like, but you know what? For him, he needs that like pure support, right? And we start off once a week. But you know what? Dude, once a week was better than what he was doing. And that's going to maybe turn into something else. So I'm proud of what we're doing.
That's the key, right? Like that's the key. The key is that like, first of all, once a week is infinitely more than 0 times a week, but that's where it starts, because there's definitely going to be a point. I guarantee you, man, it might not be tomorrow. It might not be next month, might be sometime next year, but there's going to be a point. And I don't know, Drew, that he's like, man, like I'm starting to feel really good. Like, dude, Jay, what should I buy to keep at home? And what should be something that I do one other day of the week? And now he's doing 2 days a week. Next thing you know, that turns to 3. Next thing you know, he's like, hey, Jay, like, I'm starting to feel really good. Like, what should I be eating? What should I be doing with my sleep? And next thing you know, in just like 2-3 years, maybe, Drew is like a completely different fucking human than he was before he started working out with you. And like 3 years might seem like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a long time. And now he has the rest of his life to be fucking rocking and rolling.
Dude, like Marco is the best example ever. I brought him up multiple times, but like,
dude, Marco's the man. I haven't met any of these guys, but Marco's the fucking man.
Marco means so much to me because he's an example of someone who was on a specific path, smoking all the time, whatever, jiu-jitsu athlete. Went hill sprints with me one time, hasn't smoked now in like 3 months, dude. And it's just like, that's the type of stuff that you can make an impact in your local communities. And that's stuff that really is meaningful to me. And anybody has the ability to do it, right? You have to live and breathe it yourself. And then you can start getting other people to join you along that journey. It's kind of like so I just got done. I hate using the term compete. People ask me like, oh, did you compete at a Legends competition? It's like, dude, let's not jump the gun here. I didn't compete. I participated at the Legends competition, but it was a good testament to all the fitness that I've been getting in, because I went out there, and this year was different than other years because of the rain, it was very dynamic. We didn't know the event we were doing until we literally got onto the field. And the guy's like, hey, look, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And then, like, for example, the last event we did, he's like, oh yeah, we're going to do one sandbag. And Rich is like, I think we should do 3. And everybody else is like, I think we should do 3. And we just did 3. And so it's very fluid. And so you have to be able to be prepared for the unknown and unknowable. And one of those events was traversing monkey bars. And the other one was like up and over these logs. And like, it made me feel really good that I've been getting in fitness, so that when you're asked to do something in real life, or in this case, like a showcase, you don't look like a schmuck. You look like you got your stuff together. I ripped my hands a little bit. You can't see it here on the camera, but aside from that, dude, I'm feeling good post that experience.
You know what I would add to that though? I think that you do go out there and compete. You 100% do, because there's no part of watching you, because I watched a couple of the events that you did there, where you're like mailing it in or not keeping like a little bit of an eye on like what's going on in the other lanes and how you're measuring up against these guys. So I know what you're saying. I think that the thing is that, like, for you, someone that has, the experience of literally competing to be the fittest man on earth, like, competition means something very specific, right? It means literally preparing an entire year for an event. It means all the marbles, it's for all the marbles. Like, it's a big deal. There's high stakes. I understand that none of that is the case in the showcase, but like, dude, 3, 2, 1, go. I know that you guys are all jokes and smiles until it is go, but there's no part of you that isn't competing when you're out there.
Yeah. You definitely want to look the
part. 100%, dude.
Yeah, my favorite event, honestly, I think my favorite event I've ever done in Legends. Well, there was one that we did 5 years ago that was pretty epic with Amanda. But anyways, dude, up and over these logs, bro, I felt so good. Like, I jumped over the log and then I dove under the other one, and it was like a baseball slide because it was wet grass, and just sliding underneath this log. Then you get up, you just feel like I don't know, man. It feels good to feel athletic, which is something that is always inspiring me to keep training, because that's the way I want to feel. I want to feel dynamic and athletic in life. I had a good time.
You know what is like a very simple thing that makes anybody feel athletic? And I never want to, and I don't think I will for a very long time, because fitness is a big part of our life, but like, people should try to never lose the ability to do is sprinting, like running super, super fast for short distances. And I say super fast, like, relatively, because I am by no means like a very fast athlete. I've never been. I joke that I have like no fast twitch muscles in my body, but like, going out and sprinting is something that, like, I'm incorporating now. I'm actually programming it as extra credit in flex. It's just going out there and doing like 8, like, all out 20-second efforts. You have to do it on the bike and the rower, all good. Ideally, you're getting outside and doing it running. And it's funny because this idea of never zero that we talk a lot about, which is this idea that, like, no matter how little time you have, no matter how crazy circumstances are, like, you can always do something. You can always like find time to do something. And yesterday was an interesting example, because so I wake up early in the morning every day and get like good block of work done, which gives me the flexibility to do something like during the traditional like workday hours, right? Because I get a really good head start. Usually that's training. But yesterday,
and to be fair, like, we do not work extremely traditional hours at our company, which
sure.
is fun. Yeah.
Sure.
And there's give and takes with that, right? Like,
yeah, 100%. But like, in my mind, it gives me like, okay, like, I woke up at 5 to 5:30, got a good block of work until 8. Like, I feel like I've got something, in the bag, so I can go out and get my training in and not feel like I haven't started the day yet, because that would stress me out. But anyway, on Wednesdays, that's usually my rest day. So yesterday we used that time and we got Shay his first haircut. So that was kind of a whole production. We went to, the haircut place and taking pictures, like watching him. So I didn't have as much time as I would have liked, but I still wanted to get some movement in. And all I had was probably like 20, 25 minutes later in the day. And also, I didn't want, it was usually a time where like I'm also watching Shay. And so like, I didn't want to be like, hey, I'm going to go do something movement wise and leave him with Ariel because Ariel takes care of him all day. So I had to take care of my son, 11 months old. I only had 25 minutes. And literally what I did is I went outside, I warmed up with him. So like I was carrying him around, like running around. And once I was warmed up, I like put a blanket out on the grass and like did my sprints close enough to him where I can keep an eye on him.
Right.
And it took me like all said and done, I think 16 minutes because I did 6 like all out sprints with like 2-3 minutes rest. And man, you get a solid stimulus and it takes no time, takes no equipment. You can do it with your kid like I did it with my
Especially
kid.
if you have a hill.
Yeah. And it was the perfect example. I was thinking about it to myself because I definitely, when I train, I go to the garage gym, I have a good deal of equipment. I give myself an hour. So like, I usually have it pretty good, I'd say. But I think that like sometimes people miss the fact that it's actually a lot easier than they think to go out there and do something, and not just something like go for a walk, like do something that like really, really challenges you and moves the needle in the right direction. And you can always get creative and make it happen. Always. I promise you, you always can. And I know that it's easier for some than others, but it was just a really good example of I could have found every reason yesterday to been like, it's just not going to work out today. But I'm really happy that I did. And that's the best feeling too. When you finish, you're like, man, like I got that in, even though like the cards were stacked against me. And there's no fucking better feeling than that. No better feeling.
Sprinting is so valuable. Like I think that, so for the gentleman this morning, I pulled out a bench and we were doing like bench hops, like grabbing on it with your hands and like kind of hopping over. And he has it a little bit wonky, he's a little bit weird, whatever. But a lot of these guys, they never work dynamically like that. Like, and getting them to do sprints, like they rarely, if ever, do that. Or lifting a sandbag up. Like those are practical things that I think all men should be able to do. And so that's why we added them in. And to your point, I mean, definitely using a hill, I think, is superior. But if you're just doing flat ground, bro, I mean, that's great too. Just make sure you're warmed up before it. If you're listening to this podcast, you're gonna go sprint right now. Just make sure your hamstrings are ready for it. Don't just Gabe Yanas it and like Kelly Surratt would say, like a supple leopard. Like a leopard should be able to. I'm not a supple leopard. I need some time to prime the engines.
I thought no, but I told you I warmed up. My warm up was like a warm up jog up and down while carrying my son, which was also just really fun. But yeah, our driveway, I don't know if you remember, our driveway is like a slight incline. It's not like a hill, but it's definitely like a slight incline, which just makes it perfect.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. So yeah, no, it's dude, that's great. Well, I want to talk about, I definitely want to get to some highlights from your trip traveling abroad and then kind of go from there. I mean, I just got back from Rogue Invitational. You just got back from your journey, like a week long, and getting we're not all like VIP like you, but we can't get escorted with a police escort. You're so famous because of this podcast that you had to get
this podcast. The podcast had nothing to do with it.
You're so famous for the podcast,
dude. It was such a fun, interesting, but also exhausting trip. So I was born in Ecuador. My parents were born in Ecuador. I haven't been back for 30 years for a variety of reasons. Just haven't been able to go back. And finally, like timing was right. Wanted to go see my grandma who's getting up there. Wanted her to meet Shay. Wanted her to meet Ariel. She's actually met Ariel in the States when she visited, but it was a while back. So we wanted to make this trip happen sooner rather than later. And it was like a relatively short trip for the fact that like, dude, I have so much family. My mom is one of 10. My dad is one of 7. And all my aunts and uncles live in Ecuador.
I hope, did they all come to one place for you?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, but still it's like everyone kind of wants to like take you to see one thing, right? Like everyone wants to see you. Everyone wants to like spend time with you. And so it was a lot of like, trying to navigate and figure out and like say no to certain people. But it was a really fun trip. But what you were mentioning is my uncle, my mom's brother, is
VIP, baby.
I think I'm pretty sure he's a general in the like state police. He's a big deal. He's a really big deal over there. And he's awesome. He's like a award-winning sniper too. He's badass. My uncle's fucking awesome. And he set up so that the first day we were going to tour in Quito, in the capital, which has like really, really bad traffic. And he had us have a police escort to get from like one place to the other. And it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever been in. So we had like motorcycles like taking us around. It was so much fun. Definitely a once in a lifetime experience. Yeah.
You just went wherever you wanted, right?
Wherever we wanted.
Dude.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Dude, it was pretty fun. It was fun. But that aside, that was just like a fun anecdote. The whole trip was so fun. Ecuador is a beautiful, beautiful country. It is.
Shout out to Ecuador.
Mind blowing how beautiful it is. And for it being a small.
How dangerous did it feel?
You know, they say it's really dangerous. I don't know, because we were never like alone. Oh no, that's wrong. The last day we went out for a drive alone. Honestly, it doesn't. It's kind of like what I was telling my mom when I came back. It's like one of those things where like I grew up in New York, and if you were to ask people not from New York how dangerous New York City is, and like going in the subway, they would tell you it's really dangerous. They would be like, you know, you really have to be careful. But I grew up taking the New York City subway from Queens all the way to Manhattan for school starting in 7th grade alone. And like, I was fine. I never knew anyone where anything happened. Now I've heard it's gotten a lot worse, but I do think it's one of those things that like from the outside, just because of what you hear and the fact that like news always kind of like sensationalizes the fact that any place is dangerous. I think that it comes off as it being more dangerous than it really is.
Well,
and I think that
like
it is one of the
presence. So like if you think about Mexico, so I've been all over Mexico. I love Mexico, but there are some places that are super sketch, but a lot of places aren't. But like when you cruise around Mexico, sometimes dude, you'll see those trucks with the federal police just like chilling out there with their AR. It's definitely intimidating.
It's a different feeling. It's a different world for sure.
Yeah. And I'm fine with it. It's just you definitely like it brings a presence. Was there that type of presence in Ecuador, or was it low key?
No, it was much more low key everywhere that we were. But like my uncles the first day took us to this like really cool vista where you can see all of Quito, like all of the city. And they were definitely like, see that like area over there? Like, you don't go there. You just like, we're not going to take you there. You shouldn't go there. There's no reason you would want to go there. Just don't go there. So there's definitely stuff like that, but
you have that everywhere, dude. Like, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Come to California, be like, hey, there's some areas I don't want to go.
Don't go there.
Don't go there.
Yeah, man, but it was a fun trip, dude. And it's been so interesting for me, especially because, you know, we grew up here in the States without any direct family, right? And to go back and essentially meet so many people for the first time, people that are really close family, like it's my aunts and uncles and first cousins.
Was they your first time? Your parents have seen them in a long time too?
My parents have gone back before me recently in like the past 3 years. So they didn't go. Dude, only I went.
Imagine not seeing a sibling for like years and years.
Yeah, man.
Like it's pretty gnarly. Yeah, my father-in-law couldn't see his mom for like 20 years. I mean, just going back home to Iran was just tough. It's like, man, you don't see your parents. It's tough.
Yeah. Dude, it's super tough. But no, it was a fun trip. We're already trying to figure out like when we could realistically go back. It's honestly a place that I'd like to visit often and take my kids often and just make sure that, you know, I think that one of the things that I've thought a lot about and that I'm most proud of for like, you know, being here in the States and being an American is the fact that like we all have very distinct backgrounds, and I don't ever want to lose that. And I don't want my kids to lose that either. You know, even though they're not necessarily from there or born there, that's still like where our family comes from. And I think that it's actually very American to like stay tied to that while still being proud to like, you know, live in this country and love this country for what it is. So I'm hoping we can go back soon. It was a really fun trip, man. It's beautiful. If you can ever go out there, I highly recommend it.
Well, if I went out there, I'd only go out there with you. It's like one of those things where like,
we'll do it, man.
I'd go with people who like, you know,
for sure.
Like, you know, whatever, like, but dude, that experience with your uncle, I flew in to do an event at NYPD. So I've had 2 of those experiences. One, I was in Dubai with like this Prince guy. We were just like, dude, it was gnarly. But the other,
I've heard that Dubai is another world.
Dude, it was another world. Like and the other one was I got into NYPD and I was doing a event there, and I got in late on my flight. And so like basically the guy who picked me up was in an undercover Explorer. He flipped on the lights, and dude, we just went, like all around. I loved it. And so then Ashley flies in later. I'm like, hey, can you give her the same experience? And I was like, Ashley, did you get the experience? She's like, no. I don't know if it's because they weren't allowed to do it. I don't know, but she just
had to sit in New York City traffic.
Yeah, she had to sit in New York City traffic. But anyways, yeah, next time you go to Ecuador, we'll have to talk more about like going out there, because I agree with you though, from a culture perspective. I won't say I have regrets, but like my dad has not been back to Iran since he left when he was 19. And Iran is a little bit different.
Yeah, talk about a tough place to go back to.
It's a little different, especially like for me. So I could get an Iranian passport, I could go there, but these are from people I know. They're like, dude, there's a chance you could just not be able to leave. Like, it's not like, that's not like unheard of, meaning like you can get in, but there's a chance they might not let you back out. And it's like,
yikes.
I think we'll wait, and maybe that's just hearsay, but I mean, from all the people I know, they're like, hey, it's just not the right time. So I think going to Ecuador though sounds awesome, man. That's amazing. You should definitely do that.
Yeah, beautiful country. I mean, all of South America, there's so many places we'd love to visit. And obviously it's really nice to like know the language. Dude, Ariel's Spanish is really impressive. Like really impressive. She doesn't give herself enough credit. And it was really cool to be there and see her like essentially understand everything my family would say to her. Because also my family, I have a couple cousins and a couple uncles that like know English, but for the most part, it was like just Spanish. And she wasn't like fish out of water. So that was also like really, really cool.
Yeah.
Like that was fun to watch.
That is cool. I feel so illiterate when I travel to especially Europe, and those guys are speaking like 5 different languages, and all I speak is English. It's like, damn, like never too late though. I'm not trying to cop out. I just got to pick and choose the things I'm interested in. I was listening to that Joe Rogan and Tim Kennedy, and they were talking about like all the different things they get interested in. I'm the same way. The problem is I get so interested to like, I want to be the best.
There's not enough hours in the day.
I want to be the best this. I want to be the best that. It just, you guys start picking and choosing what you really want to focus on. Like, especially like this tactical games, dude. Like, that's going to take time. Like, you got to develop the skills.
It's a hell of time. Has Ava started studying a language? Just because you brought that up.
Yeah, yes. She does Duolingo, which is like this like Spanish thing every day.
But not through school.
Oh yeah, in school too. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. But the school stuff, it's whatever. It's fine. But she has a desire to continue to learn Spanish. Caden, he's kind of like whatever. Like
dude, here's a question for you, because I think one of the best ways to learn a different language is to study abroad. Would she ever want to do that?
She should.
And how, like, what's your comfort level?
I'd encourage it. I mean, I think that my only regret, I wouldn't say it's regret. It is a regret. It's a regret because I was immature. Ashley and I chose not to study abroad because I was working full time, going to school full time. And I chose not to study abroad because I was making really good money at the gym at the time. And it was just short-sighted. It was like the one time in my life that I could have traveled and done something like that and backpacked throughout Europe and done different stuff. And I just didn't do it. And I would definitely want Ava to experience another culture for months and months. Like Ashley and I talk about it. When our kids get older, we'll probably live like 6 months a year somewhere and 6 months a year here. Like we want to explore, like we'd love to have like a little place in Mexico or whatever. Like we want to immerse ourselves in different cultures. It's just right now, it's hard to do it,
For sure. And that's another reason to stay fucking healthy and fit, so you can enjoy that second chapter of life, like you don't want to get to that point and be like, man, like I can't go on that hike, or I don't have the energy or whatever. I know we talk like we beat this like a damn dead horse, but that's another huge reason. Like you want to get to whatever age it's going to be, 55, 56, like whatever age it is where you're quote unquote an empty nester and just be able to do whatever the fuck you want.
Well, when Caden is in college, I'll be just turning, like I'll be I'll be like 50 when the kid, because we had kids pretty young, but I still want to be that guy who's, uber duper fit and going all the games and doing all that kind of stuff. That's part of the chapter. That's what I aspire to do through all these different training sessions that I do, is like the bigger picture. And yeah, man, we just had that podcast come out with Jacob Hepner, If you guys didn't check that one out, it's all about the technical games. Before that, we had a bunch of other great episodes. Obviously, we do the Khalifa Khalipas, the Q&As, all that kind of stuff. If you miss any of those, make sure you guys go back. And shameless plug here. If you are not signed up for our newsletter and you listen to this podcast, you got to go subscribe to the newsletter, because every week we're dropping some great stuff in there. So make sure to sign up for that.
Yeah. And there's also going to start being some exclusive opportunities to, dive a little deeper with Train Hard and some of the things we have going on exclusively through the newsletter. So this isn't stuff we're going to post on social. It's not stuff that's going to be available to anyone else. It's literally, if you're getting emails, you'll know what's going on. If not, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. So just another reason to make sure you're subscribed to that newsletter.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that in the newsletter too, you could respond back. We get the emails and those add in for Q&As. Like, we got one in right before this podcast. And of course it was talking about jiu-jitsu and CrossFit. So, I mean, naturally, we're going to have to answer that one. Did you want to talk about some others,
Yeah. I mean, I've been kind of diving into this book, I've been thinking a lot about, the things that I think have really benefited me in my life and that I'm super grateful for, because the more I think about, raising Shay, and now, we're going to have a daughter soon, which is insane. Every time I like remind myself of that, I'm like, oh my God, there's going to be two. I try and like almost reverse engineer the things that I think have been incredibly beneficial in my life, because, I think I'm very fortunate, man. I'm super happy where I am today. And I know a part of that has been luck. A part of that has been hard work for sure, but I want to make sure that I'm doing my best to try and replicate some of the things that have been super beneficial for me, so that hopefully my kid has the same experience, man. Like, we have a beautiful house. Like, we're on 12 acres. We live close to our parents. I have good relationship with my family. Like, I love my job. I love what we're doing. Like, damn, dude, like I wake up in the mornings and I am fucking like super lucky and super grateful that I am where I am today. But that also stresses me out a little bit, in that I really hope that the way things like fell into place for me, that, some things are out of your control, and it is, luck definitely plays into it. I want to make sure that I'm putting those things, or being intentional about trying to replicate that for my kids. And one of the things that I heard or read was, there's a lot of things that are in our control as dads, right? To be this like male role model figure for our kids, especially our boys. But there are also like a lot of other male role models that they're going to have in life, right? Like teachers, coaches, especially. Coaches are a huge one that they should have.
Yep.
But that are equally as important for us to like vet and know, like, who is teaching my kids these important lessons that I want them to take away in life. And as I started thinking about that, man, like the swim coach that I had growing up as a little kid, dude, he was crazy, but like crazy in a good way. Like, I don't even think this would play anymore, but his name, dude, even his name was so spot on. His name was Dragos Koka. That was his name, dude. And he just
threw people into the pool.
Dude, and he was this Romanian guy, super old school, thick accent. Dude, I remember him, and he was tough as nails. Like he didn't
understand anything other than that. Like, and imagine that dude's life experiences, right? That guy's probably seen some stuff.
Exactly, man. And he was my swim coach.
Complaining about the cold water. He's like, what are you talking about?
Dude, and he was my swim coach. I wasn't going to mention it, but yeah. And he was my swim coach, man, from when I was 8 and under. So from when I was like 7 all the way to when I went to high school or went to college. And, we had swim practice pretty much year round. We had 2-week breaks in between summer season and winter season, but pretty much, 6 days a week, every single day, pretty much from age 7 to age 18. I can't think of someone that like didn't have a bigger impact on like my work ethic and just my outlook on like what it takes to like accomplish stuff than that man, aside from my dad, of course. And I think I was very fortunate that like, that was just a swim team that I joined. And it wasn't even because like my parents were like looking out for like, hey, who's this really tough swim coach that can instill all these lessons on my kid? It was just because it was like, it was an affordable sport to put me into.
Yep.
You know? So that's where like I go back to the fact that like some of these things are 100% luck, but I think that it just made me think of, you know, when my kid wants to do sports or when my kid wants to do any extracurricular activity, the importance of that coach that he's going to be spending time with and what his values are. And if he's teaching the fact that hard work is important, that good sportsmanship is important, or if he's just like, you know, they're like going through the motions, like I need to be very, very intentional about who I'm picking to coach my kid and spend time with my kid. And I think that like, it's worth talking about because I think other parents should. Like, you shouldn't just sign them up and never meet the coach or never spend some time in practice. And I'm not saying like go to practice and be that parent that's like, you know, like looking over them and like, you know, like sideline coaching, but like, you should fucking know who's coaching your kid, what they're teaching them and how they're approaching that stuff. Cause I think it can have a bigger impact than you realize.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in the journey for my children, just speaking from their ages, they've had a variety of different coaches. Like, it's not just like one person over many time, but that's going to change. You know, like there will be some coaches that become like mainstays for many years, especially like at high school level, right? Like, imagine if you have a really great high school coach versus like a mediocre one. That could be instrumental in that child's ability to obviously, you know, are they partying too much? Are they doing all these different things? And then having the coach come in as another like third party mentor and be like, dude, like you got to get your stuff together. Like you're not reaching your potential. Like that becomes different from a coach that you respect than not. And then speaking of that, like imagine back in sports, right? The coaches that you really had a lot of respect for. I remember there was this one coach, his name was Coach Malai. Shout out to Coach Malai. He was San Jose PD. This dude played football for San Jose State. And he was just, dude, he would come in and he would just, you talk about walk the walk, talk the talk. This guy came in and he demanded your attention. He commanded the room. He brought energy that was just, oh, dude, it was, I mean, here I am all these years later. I still remember how I felt when he walked into the room. And it's because he didn't just talk about it. He acted it. You could tell that guy trained, he got after it. And so for me, it's like when I'm looking at coaches, I want them to embody specific characteristics and have my son instill some of those, right? And be about it. And maybe there will be some coaches that you look at and they're not the right fit. And maybe you can even use that as a learning experience for your child. But I think that paying attention is the key. You know, like this year, I'm the assistant coach for flag football. It starts in like a month. And, you know, my role is going to be very specific. Like, how do I help these young men, like, have better sportsmanship, you know, connect better with each other? I'm not going to talk about football because that's the head coach's job. I just want to talk about all the other intangibles that I think build up something really special. And you're hitting the nail on the head, man. I mean, if you're a parent and you're not paying attention to who's coaching your kids, I think you're missing out. Not to mention all the time they spend with daycare people or whatever. Like, all of those people are going to have influence on them. You know, it's important.
Dude, I would sign up my kids to be coached by Jason Khalipa any fucking day.
Dude,
any fucking day.
Dude, I was at Flag Flips last year and it was cold outside. I just got back from jiu-jitsu. I was all fired up. So I get out there and they had like turf grass and I went barefoot. So I was barefoot in shorts and a t-shirt and it was like super cold, like rainy out there. And people just look at me like, who the hell is this guy running up and down the sidelines, you know, high-fiving, you know, back pumping these kids, because that's my role. Like my role is to be there just to foster a good support system, not to talk about X's and O's and whatnot. Like I don't want to call plays. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want the boys to feel loved and to feel like we're here to work. So like, you got to work. And if you do well, I want to celebrate it. If you don't do well, I want to talk about it. You know, I think that's going to be my style going into this year too.
Yeah, man. I think it just comes down to like being involved. You were talking about listening to the Tim Kennedy, Joe Rogan podcast, and he starts talking about like the Apogee schools and stuff. And, you know, I know that like signing up for a school like that or homeschooling or whatever isn't realistic or like something that a lot of families would want to do. But I think the biggest takeaway I took from that is regardless of what we decide to do down the road, you have to be involved. You can't, it's not like a set it and forget it with whatever school or coach. Like it's going to take work. It's going to take vetting. It's going to take you like, you know, being involved, giving feedback if possible. But I think that approaching it with like oh, this is just an extracurricular school that's going to take care of my kids so I get that time back, I think is the wrong way to approach it. And I hope that that's, I mean, you know, it's easy. And I know that some of these things are easy for me to say because I'm a few years removed from like having to do that, and life gets busy or whatever. But I genuinely hope that I am never approaching it in that way. And
Well,
I honestly, I don't think I will.
Like here, I'll give you an example. Ashley's on PTG, which is like parent teacher group, or I think that's what it's called. And then she's a volleyball coach, and I assist in a variety of different things. So when we're present and we have feedback, people are more available for it because they know that we show up.
Because you're involved. Yeah.
Yeah. When parents try and like add in their 2 cents and they never show up anywhere, they never support anywhere, they never do anything, and they just want to add their 2 cents. It's like it's kind of in one ear, out the other, because they're not there. They're not trying to make a change. They just want to come in and say what's wrong or whatever it is. Like nothing's perfect, right? But it's like if you're present, if you're involved in what's going on, you could also have a way what's in your control to actually make a positive impact, which is cool. Like you can actually have an impact on everybody. So that makes me really fulfilled to know that like when we give feedback, they know it comes from a place of care because we're showing up regularly, right? And
yeah,
the homeschool thing. I mean, dude, hey, have you heard of the red shirt? Have you heard of the new red shirt theory? So
no. Wait, for boys to skip a year?
Yeah. So
they bring it up in the book.
Dude, so a lot of people these days are holding back their kid in 8th grade to do it again before going to high school. Because now also, if you look at like the money coming out from colleges, dude, if you have an athlete who's really good, they could be making like Deion Sanders' son, I think, is making $3 million a year right now in college. So if you have an athlete who's a year additional growth in high school, their potential skyrockets. So there's some people that are holding their kids back in 8th grade. I think what I would have done if I could do it again is maybe have started Caden a little bit later in TK or had him do it twice because he's a little bit young for his age, but we're not planning on redshirting him in 8th grade, but that is something that people are doing right now.
Well, in the book, they more talk about the fact that there's like a very well understood cognitive development delay in boys versus girls. Like girls 100% mature sooner.
Right.
And so they talk more about like, it's worth starting your boy a year later from early on in school,
right,
just to give him a chance to not be like, a step behind in school already. Because I think that a lot of where, and I know that, Tim Kennedy talks about this a lot, but there's a lot of ways where our school system can improve, obviously. But one of the things is like, boys get discouraged very early on because they're just not ready to, I don't think they're ever ready to sit down all day and try and just memorize and regurgitate stuff. But it's even worse so when they're starting at the same time of girls than girls who are like maybe a little bit more like cognitively prepared for that. So that's one of the things they talk about in the book, and it makes a lot of sense. And it's funny, I was just talking about this with Ariel the other day. It'll be interesting because since we're having our girl like literally a year, essentially a little bit less than a year.
Oh, you can maybe have them both in the same grade.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because like, it's the exact window of how much faster, girls per se develop. So it'll be interesting to see them grow up together where even though Shay's a little older, they're probably going to be very similar in terms of how they develop and maturity level. So it'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, dude. I think, like I said, you could start TK, do it twice. We're not in a position to have Caden do 8th grade twice just because I want to keep him with his friends. I want to keep him moving forward. That to me, like it's already passed. But if I was doing it again, I would probably delay the start a little bit. And I think, anyways, that is just and the game's changing a little bit with college sports too, man. I mean, dude, could you imagine graduating from high school at 18, 19, whatever, and then you get a redshirt year and 4 more years, and you could play up to I think 3 games and get a redshirt year, making potentially like millions of dollars. Like and what's happening now is that if you're a good player, like at Ole Miss, like you'll have other teams that are recruiting you. And because you're not like signing contracts that you are in the NFL, they'll recruit you for more money. And like coaches are having like retain talent by paying them more because they're getting all these offers from different places. Like I was talking to Tommy Hackenbrook and a few other legends about it at the Rogue Invitational. It was mind blowing.
So, because I'm not very into this world, but it's the actual schools that are paying the student athletes. I thought it was just that they were open to now like being able to get like endorsement deals and stuff. But like it's literally the schools paying.
Yeah, what they're doing is,
How does that work?
so I think what they're doing, I'd have to Google this after this episode, and someone could probably educate us way more than I am. But I think what they're doing is they're creating like a booster fund to get athletes. So like, let's just say you're like a major school, like, I don't know, Oklahoma or Texas, whatever. You have these boosters who are all about the football team. And so they'll put together a budget of, I don't know, 100 million bucks, and the school will pay athletes. It's kind of like the NFL. It's like the same exact thing. But you could also get money off, whatever. Like Deion Sanders' son, for example, perfect example. This guy told me he's rolling around, he's driving a Rolls Royce to go to school at CU. But you know what, man? If he's generating revenue for the business, and if I think it's good that these athletes are getting paid because they were generating so much profit for the school, they should get a piece of it. Now, how it's all administered and what's going on, that's a different story. But yeah, dude, I think the schools and they get endorsements.
I think that this, not slippery slope, that's not the word I'm looking for, but the double-edged sword side of it though is I hope that, I think that Deion Sanders' kid's different because he clearly has a support system there that can help him to some extent manage that responsibly. But man, like, dude, being 18 and having that type of money without the responsibility and foresight to be like, hey, like, football's never going to be a forever career. Like, it's just not, man.
Yeah, you can't
like,
be spending like crazy. Did you watch the Deion
you gotta
Sanders?
stash some of that away, man. No, I haven't.
Dude, Coach Prime, if you are listening to this and you want to get inspired by, I believe, to be a good leader, just watch his documentary. Like, you could say what you want about Deion Sanders, but when you watch his documentary, you can't help but realize that dude's got a heart for these kids, and he's trying to get them paid and get them to thrive. And some of these kids, man, they're coming from some really bad places. And, like one of the kids they did a documentary on, I looked him up, and I think he's making like $2 million right now. And he said the first thing he's going to do is get his parents out of the hood, like, or his mom out of the hood. Like, that's the first thing he's doing, is he's getting mom out of an area where he's really worried about her. And I don't know, I think that's powerful too, right? So yeah, check out that documentary when you get a chance.
I will, man. Dude, Deion Sanders, I have to look. I love this. Dude,
Yeah,
you look good,
yeah,
you
look
feel
good.
good. You
Yeah.
feel good, you play good. You play good, they pay good.
They pay good. Dude, I love that Deion Sanders.
Which basically boils down to, hey, if you look the part, it'll help all other areas of your life. He's basically talking about the train hard mantra, dude.
Long story short,
we gotta get Coach Prime.
we got to get Coach Prime on the podcast. But yeah, it makes total sense, and he's done a great job over. I don't know. I mean, he's doing okay at CU, but what he did with the other school before that, I can't remember.
Yeah, the historically
yeah. But he did a great job over there, and he just watch the documentary. It's pretty interesting. But
yeah, I will. I'll check it out. I forget where I heard, and I might have brought this up on this podcast. Oh, it was on My First Millions, another podcast that I really listened to. Shout out to our president, Matt Walker, for the recommendation. He got me hooked onto that podcast, and I love it. But they were talking about one of the Coach Prime speeches when he first came to Colorado, and how he like essentially said, like, if you don't want to be here, like, go.
yeah, and 50% of the team left.
50% of the team left. And he was like, his reasoning for that was because he gave like a really harsh speech. And some people criticize him for like, isn't that a little too harsh for what essentially are kids, like young men? And he was like, if words are what's going to make you give up, then I know that you don't have the toughness that it's going to take to like face the adversity of the season and really help us contribute. So I want to weed out the people that just the speech and just words, like, if you can't take that, like, you're not going to help this team win football games. Yeah. And, you can make an argument for or against. And I know, Colorado was off to like a really hot start, and since then, maybe not so hot, but I love that messaging. I love that thought process, right? It's like, you have to be tough. Like, if you're not being tough and these are the kids that you care about, like, the world's going to be tough. Like, the football season's going to be tough. Other teams are going to be tough. The fans of other teams are going to be tough. Like, you have to toughen them up intentionally because you care and love for them and want them to succeed. Because if you don't toughen them up, if you're not tough on them, then how are they going to deal with all the people that don't care about them and don't love them and are tough on them?
Dude, 100%. And one of the things that my big takeaway from that documentary was how much he cared for the kids. Like, you could genuinely see it in him. And also how much he cared about being dominant. Like, he did not care about winning. He didn't want to win. he wanted to dominate. Like it was not like in his mind, a win was inadequate. Like he wanted to be so dominant that like he left no doubt. And I really appreciated the way he approached each game because he wanted excellence. Like not like, and I can only imagine what the locker room was like after they gave up like a 21 point. They were like up by 21 points over Stanford and they gave it up. I can only imagine after watching that documentary what the locker room was like. But if you haven't checked it out, it is a good, inspiring series, and it's kid friendly. So like I watched it with Caden, it was great.
You know who else I've heard more and more about was a similar type of coach, but much more low key. The thing about Coach Prime is that like Deion Sanders is like a marketing genius. Like he's put himself out there for a reason. But if you listen to some of the old players, if you listen, like Tom Brady's doing a lot of interviews now that I've been listening to, dude, Bill Belichick.
Oh yeah.
It's a fucking like, dude, playing for Bill Belichick must have been like an experience. Like that dude, tough as nails, no bullshit. Like if you watch some of his like post-game interviews too, like he's just that guy. And it's a shame now because the Patriots aren't doing well and it seems like it's going to be the end of that historic run. But man, like some of the stories, like Julian Edelman, he was a wide receiver for the Patriots and he does a lot of podcasting now. He's on like a ton of podcasts. I see his content all the time and he always has like some amazing Bill Belichick stories. And it just, that's another guy that like, you know, obviously hasn't put himself out there. He's very low key, but he very similarly just tough as nails. And it's cool to hear stories like that when it comes to coaches.
For sure. Just a reminder, like going for full circle, like you'll remember your children and you remember your coaches and your children will remember the ones that really made an impact. And it's our job as parents to foster that and to try and identify ones that can make a positive impact. Like I've had a lot of positive people influence my life. And I'm sure many people listening have too. And you remember them. And you also remember the people that negatively impact. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that could be bad. So keep charging forward. I just want to say for everybody listening to this podcast, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. We appreciate you guys for time, for wanting to raise the bar with us. This is the mission that we are on. We're going to continue on this mission. Simple ask. Well, we've asked a few things so far on this podcast. Make sure you are part of the newsletter. If you're not, like, dude, come on, man. It's free, valuable content every week. But then also, simple ask. Leave us a rating. Leave us a review on the podcast. It just helps us out. And I know how many downloads we get. And I know how many reviews we have. So I know there's some of you guys out there that can leave us a review. So leave us a review. We'd greatly appreciate it. And that's all I got for closing last words. Gabe, you got anything for him?
Just that I love hearing from people that listen to the podcast. You know, I probably don't get it as much as Jason, but shoot me a DM, shoot me a message. I actually got a lot of messages from not this last one with Hebner, but the one before that. So it's funny because we recorded a bunch of episodes because we had some traveling and stuff going on. So we got a whole bunch done and then they've kind of been going out little by little. So I can't keep track of like exactly what we said when, but I started getting a bunch of DMs of people congratulating me for the fact that we're going to have another kid.
Yeah.
And it's because I brought that up on a podcast like a while back. And I remember I shared it with you then. So it was just funny, but I love hearing from people. So yeah, if there's anything about the podcast you love, anything you want to hear us talk more about, you can always shoot me a DM. I answer all of them and I love hearing from you guys. So
yeah, make sure to check out the podcast show notes for links to basically everything and anything. Appreciate all of you guys. Keep getting after it. Keep training hard. Let's go.